Hello there, learning buddies. Welcome to Let's Learn channel. Please like and subscribe for more educational videos. We are now on the basic grammar rules, part 3, subject and verb agreement. I'm sure everyone can already recognize what subjects and verbs are. Now let us move forward to the rules of subject and verb agreement. The first rule: if the subject is singular, the verb must be singular too. If the subject is plural, the verb must also be plural. For example, here, this is an incorrect sentence. The researcher gave varying amounts of the drug to different groups of influenza patients. Now, what is the subject here? It is the researcher. And is it singular or plural? Singular. That's why we need to have a singular verb. But then give here is plural. That's why the sentence is incorrect. It should be: the researcher gives varying amounts of the drug to different groups of influenza patients. Researcher here is a singular subject and gives here is a singular verb. Okay, another set of examples. Blood and saliva was collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. This is an incorrect sentence. In this sentence, there are two subjects, and these are blood and saliva. So, the subjects here are plural, and was here is a singular verb. That's why the sentence becomes incorrect. Instead of was, we have to use where. So blood and saliva were collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. How about we try these exercises? Let's have the first one. Researchers knows that exposure to high pressure can injure or kill living organisms. What do you think is the verb here? Is it know or knows? Researchers here is the subject, and it is in a plural form, so it must have a plural verb. Therefore, what we are going to use is the plural verb know. The second exercise. A study was created to test the effects of fear in children. What do you think is the answer? Study is the subject, which is singular. Therefore, we have to use the singular form of the verb, and that is was. Now let us take note of a common mistake. A common mistake in writing is to complicate sentences by separating the subject from the verb with long intervening phrases. This often leads to subject-verb disagreement because it is no longer clear which subject the verb should agree with. Blood and saliva, two of many bodily fluid samples analyzed by our clinical assistant, was collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. This is an incorrect sentence. What do you think is the intervening phrase in this sentence? It is two of many bodily fluid samples analyzed by our clinical assistant. Blood and saliva here, which are the subjects, are plural, so it must have a plural verb. So you either disregard the intervening phrase, so it goes like this: blood and saliva, two of many bodily fluid samples analyzed by our clinical assistant, were collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. Or you can make the intervening phrase as a second sentence. Blood and saliva were collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. These were two of many bodily fluid samples analyzed by our clinical assistant. Let us have some exercises with intervening phrases. Number 1. Dr. Kopus, the officer in charge of the cognition department at the University of Wisconsin-Madison, puts half of her existing patients on the drug for 2 weeks while giving the other half of her patients a placebo or a fake drug. What is the intervening phrases in the sentence? The officer in charge of the cognition department at the University of Wisconsin-Madison. Now, what is the subject here? It is Dr. Kopus, and the subject is singular. Now, what should we do with the verb? It should be in the singular form. Therefore, we have to use puts. Second, a new drug, membrane, improves people's memories. What is the subject here? It is a new drug, which is singular. So what should be the verb? It is improves. Now let us be familiar with these punctuation marks. These are brackets and these are parentheses. The rule says that brackets and or parentheses cause the same problem. Any information enclosed in brackets or parentheses should be ignored when deciding which verb to use. For example, neurological monitoring, particularly intracranial pressure and partial oxygen pressure, show whether the brain is vulnerable to hypoxic damage. This is an incorrect sentence. What do you think is the subject in this sentence? It is neurological monitoring and it is a singular subject. Therefore, we need to use the singular verb. So instead of show, we have to use shows. The correct sentence is neurological monitoring, particularly intracranial pressure and partial oxygen pressure, shows whether the brain is vulnerable to hypoxic damage. Let us try these out. First exercise. The researcher, Martha, studies the impact of withholding affection and rats. In the sentence, what do you think is the subject? It is the researcher. So, it should have a singular verb. Our answer should be studies. Second sentence, national high schools, particularly those in the province, passes a rule reducing how much teachers can count homework as part of a student's grade. What should be the verb? Our subject here is national high schools, and it is in the plural form. Therefore, we need to use the plural form of the verb. Our answer is pass. Let us have the second rule. When the subject of the sentence is composed of two or more nouns or pronouns connected by and, use a plural verb. So for example, the doctoral student and the committee members writes every day. This is an incorrect sentence, considering that our subjects here are doctoral student and the committee members. Therefore, we need to use the plural form of the verb. So instead of writes, we have to use write. The doctoral student and the committee members write every day. Let us try these exercises. First exercise. A pharmaceutical researcher and a chemist think things that a drug, no flu, can make influenza patients recover more quickly. Now, the subjects here are pharmaceutical researcher and chemist. Therefore, we need to have a plural verb. And our plural verb here is think. Second sentence, Bay and Ree questions whether screen time on phones at night affects academic performance. Now, what do you think is our verb here? It is question. Now, there are some conjunctions like in addition to, together with, and as well as do not make the subjects they join together plural. So do not confuse of these conjunctions as and. It is a common mistake in writing and usually leads to subject-verb disagreement. So take note of these conjunctions in addition to, together with, and as well as. They do not make the subjects plural. Do not confuse these conjunctions with the conjunction and. Blood as well as saliva were collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. There is only one subject in this sentence, and that is blood, so it is singular. Therefore, we need to have the singular verb. And where here is not a singular verb, so instead of using where, we have to use was. Therefore, the correct sentence is blood as well as saliva was collected from the patient upon admission to the ward. Let's have the exercises. First, a pharmaceutical researcher together with a chemist thinks that a drug no flu can make influenza patients recover more quickly. What is our subject here? It is a pharmaceutical researcher, and this is a singular subject. Therefore, we need to use the singular verb thinks. Second, Beyonce as well as Rihanna questions whether screen time on phones at night affects academic performance. Now, the subject here is Beyonce. Therefore, we need to use the singular verb questions. Let's have the next rule. When there is one subject and more than one verb, the verbs throughout the sentence must agree with the subject. For example, an assumption is something that is generally accepted as true and are an important consideration when conducting a doctoral study. This is an incorrect sentence, considering that the subject here is an assumption, which is in its singular form. Is here is a singular verb. It goes with the singular subject, so this is correct. However, the next verb, which is are, that is not a singular verb. It is a plural verb. Therefore, the sentence becomes incorrect. What should be using here is. So an assumption is something that is generally accepted as true and is an important consideration when conducting a doctoral study. Okay, here are the other examples. Interviews are one way to collect data and allows researchers to gain an in-depth understanding of participants. This is an incorrect sentence. Interviews here is a plural subject, therefore it must have a plural verb. So are here is a plural verb, it is correct. However, the next verb, which is allows, is not a plural verb. So instead of using allows, we can use the plural form, which is allow. Interviews are one way to collect data and allow researchers to gain an in-depth understanding of participants. Let us try these exercises. First exercise. A researcher dissolves different amounts of pesticide in water and applies the solutions to population of ants. What is our subject in this sentence? It is a researcher. Therefore, we need to have the singular verbs. Our answers would be a researcher dissolves different amounts of pesticide in water and applies the solutions to population of ants. Second exercise. Students watches a cartoon either alone or with others and then rate rates how funny they found the cartoon to be. What do you think is the subject in this sentence? It is the students. Is it singular or plural? Plural, therefore we need to have plural verbs. What would be our answers? Students watch a cartoon either alone or with others, and then rate how funny they found the cartoon to be. We are now on the fourth rule of the subject and verb agreement. When two or more singular nouns or pronouns are connected by or nor, look at the subject, whether it is singular or plural. For example, this is an incorrect sentence, considering that our subjects here are both plural. Fibroblasts is plural, astrocytes is also plural. Therefore, we need to use the plural form of the verb. So instead of using grows, we have to use grow. Therefore, the correct sentence is fibroblasts or astrocytes grow in this culture medium. Let us try to answer these exercises. First, gender or family income affects the performance of learners in science. What are the subjects in the sentence? The subjects here are gender and family income, and the subjects are both singular. Therefore, we need to have the singular verb affects. Second exercise, checklists or rating scales are to be used for record keeping. What are the subjects in the sentence? The subjects here are checklists and rating scales, and they are both plural. Therefore, we need to have the plural verb are. Now let's move on to the next rule. When a compound subject contains both a singular and a plural noun or pronoun joined by or nor, the verb should agree with the part of the subject that is closest to the verb. This is also called the rule of proximity. For example, aggression or suicidal behaviors was reported. Now our subjects here are aggression and suicidal behaviors. Aggression is singular. However, suicidal behaviors is plural. Now what should be our verb? Is it singular or plural? Now let's take note of this. Rule of proximity. So what is the subject that is closest to the verb or closer to the verb? It is suicidal behaviors, and suicidal behaviors is in its plural form. Therefore, we need to use the plural verb. So instead of using was, we have here where. So aggression or suicidal behaviors were reported, and this is the correct sentence. Or you can have suicidal behaviors or aggression was reported, considering that aggression here is the subject that is closer to the verb. And aggression is in its singular form. Therefore, we need to have the singular verb. Other set of examples. The student or the committee members writes every day. As we can see here, the student is in its singular form, and the committee members, this is a plural subject. But we have to agree on the subject that is closer to the verb. So instead of using writes, we need to use write, since committee members is plural. Or we can interchange the subjects. So we can have the committee members or the student writes every day. Considering that student here, which is closer to the verb, is in its singular form. Therefore, we need to have the singular verb writes. Let us try these exercises. Existing records or observation are to be used in data collection. What are the subjects in the sentence? We have existing records and observation. As you can see, existing records is plural and observation is singular. But then we have to use the rule of proximity. So since observation here is singular, we need to use the singular verb is. How about observation or existing records are to be used in data collection? In a sentence, what is now the subject that is closer to the verb? It is existing records, and existing records is plural, therefore we need to use are. Congratulations for a job well done. I hope you learned something from this grammar lesson. In case you like to read literary works, you can also follow me on Wattpad with Sophia at Hearty Lit. Up next are the rules in subject and verb agreement, part 4. Stay tuned and thank you for watching.